Yes, we thank you so much for watching Voices of the Bar, where the legal world speaks. And today we want to go straight to Family Law 1, and we want to discuss the preliminaries of marriage, but only under a civil marriage. That what are some of the steps procedure that one should take when you are going to get married under the arrangement of a civil marriage. We have four types of marriages that are accepted. One is the civil marriage, where you go to the office of the registrar, and the registrar performs the process of getting married, and you become husbands and wife. You announce under section 25 of the Marriage Act. Then we have the other type, which is the church marriage, where you go to the church, the bands are called in church, and then after a certified an agreed time of the parties, the consent and all that, you get married in church. And then we have the other type, which is the customary type of marriage. This one is when we go to our parent, customarily, depending on the culture that you believe in. But the most important about customary marriage is that we perform it depending on the custom, the culture of where the woman comes from. Look at the case of Nasanga versus Nanyonga. When we discuss customary marriage, we shall get deep into that bit. And again, we have the Hindu marriages. We have the Hindu marriages, and then finally we have, and there we have the Hindu Act, and then we have finally the Muhammadan, the Islamic type of marriage, and that is under the Muhammadan Act. We also have the Customary Act. So that is what some of the types of marriages that we have. But we are going to look at the steps, how to carry out each type of marriage that I've talked about. And our first area will definitely be the civil marriages. What are some of the steps that one should take when you want what we call the preliminaries, when you want to carry out what we call the civil marriage? Number one, if you want to carry out a civil marriage, the first thing you do is to write a notice to the registrar. You must write a notice under section 6 of the Marriage Act, that in this notice you are telling the registrar that I intend to get married to so and so. The moment that is actually done, then you will receive a reply from the registrar accepting what you have said. Now, the moment you give a registrar a notice under section 6 that you want to get married, the registrar will actually cause that notice to be put on his notice board. Why is this notice put on the registrar's door? Is telling the public that Mr. Walsimbi and Mrs. So-and-so, they intend to get married. Anybody who has something that prohibits these people from continuing, please come and say. Now, when you issue the notice, your marriage will happen after 3 months. So the first step is for you to issue a notice to the registrar. Of course, in a later video, I am going to discuss for you the caveat, how to caveat the under section 13 and Section 14 of the Marriage Act, how to caveat a civil marriage. How is the process done under Section 13 and Section 14 of the Marriage Act? And then we shall appreciate a caveat, and then we shall appreciate more the concept of the notice. But for now, we have issued a notice. Now, when the registrar responds, these things are very key in the response of the registrar. One, the registrar wants to know whether the two parties, the next step, the two parties, one of the parties should have stayed in Uganda for at least 15 days. Not both. One of the parties should have stayed in Uganda for some time. Now, when you certify all that, then the next step now is very simple. The registrar will now invite you people to come to the registrar's office. But of course, there will be a reply from the registrar. And then when you come to the registrar's office, your marriage will be conducted in a licensed place, in a marriage room. A marriage room can be the registrar's office or any other room. I'm told it has now shifted from URSB now at NIDA. But where the registrar is, there is a marriage room which has been licensed by the minister. The minister in charge of Constitutional Affairs is the minister that will license the marriage room. When you carry out your marriage, a civil type of marriage, and not in a licensed room or in a marriage room, your marriage is void. Okay? Now, then, this meeting, your marriage, should only take place between 8 o'clock and 4 o'clock. Section 13, 25. Your marriage should only take place between 8 o'clock and 4 o'clock. Above that time, which has been stipulated, then that marriage is not there. When you meet in the problem question, of course we shall discuss how to answer questions about marriage, and we shall come at a point of public holidays. What happens if the people want to conduct their civil marriage on a public holiday? There are cases which have established the meaning of public holiday, and what happens to government offices. But of course, we'll discuss that when we're discussing the questions of how to answer marriage, questions on marriage, customary, civil, church, Mohammedan and Hindu. At that particular time, we shall be able to discuss that. So, your marriage has happened in the marriage room between 8 and 4 o'clock, and then from there, the registrar will start the process of the vows. Now, when the registrar has done his part, this marriage is supposed to take place between two witnesses. If you look at Section 7 of the Marriage Act, it will tell you what happens to people who cannot sign, but they are witnesses. Okay. Now, when this marriage can only take place between where there are two witnesses. Where you don't have witnesses and your marriage takes place, then that marriage is voidable. Of course, in our subsequent video, I'm going to give you the difference between void marriage and voidable marriage, and then we shall weigh examples. What happens if it is not in a marriage room? Is the marriage void or voidable? What happens if there was no consent? Is the marriage void or voidable? What happens if there was a degree of consanguinity and affinity? You understand? All that we shall discuss in our video about the void and voidable marriages. We shall paint a very good picture when we get there. Then, part of the duty and work of the registrar is to establish that the two people who are before his office, now I'm bringing in some bit of requirements, prerequisites. The registrar would have to establish whether there was no consent, whether there was consent or no consent, whether these people are not related. And that explains the open door, notice board. Okay? Then we'll establish whether these people are not related, they are not, there was consent, of course they are of age. Because, note from here, most of the prerequisites that we discussed earlier make a marriage void. And then most of the preliminaries make a marriage voidable. But of course, when we get there, we shall establish, we shall discuss, and appreciate that course of that side. Now, your marriage happens in a marriage room within open doors. We don't close the doors. They should be open. Anyone who wants to access will access the marriage room. So you can't say they will give you a problem question when we discuss how to answer later. They will give you a problem question telling you they entered in the marriage room, they closed the doors, the windows, and then they did this. There was no marriage. Because the law is clear under the Marriage Act. Is discussing open doors. With open doors. It's very important. Don't underestimate it. Otherwise, we thank you so much for watching Voices of the Bar, where the legal minds speak. Subscribe, share, and like our videos. Now, we have established that the marriage will happen in the marriage room with open doors, and there you will now, the registrar after will now turn to you to make your final vows that I, Mr. Walusimbi, Walter, I take thee, Nakatude Sumaiya, as my wife. You now take your vows. And then the registrar will now issue, after that, a certificate. Will issue a certificate of marriage to confirm that the 2 years they have been married in my office and they were married in a marriage room with the open doors. On this date, these people were married. And then you too and the witnesses will have to sign on that list. So, those are some of the steps that you follow when you want to get married under civil marriages. Under civil marriages. In our next video, we shall discuss the steps under the church. Under the church. But key things to note from this video. Number one, we must appreciate that you cannot get married under any type of marriage when that place where you're getting married from has not been licensed. where the registrar does not include your marriage in the registrar's marriage book, then that marriage of yours is null and void. It never existed. So we thank you so much for watching Voices of the Bar, where the legal world speaks. Thank you so much. We appreciate for the time and the subscriptions. Subscribe, share, and keep liking our videos. In our next video about family law, we shall discuss the preliminaries under church marriage, and then we shall discuss the preliminaries under customary marriage, and then finally we shall bring together the preliminaries of Hindu marriages and Muhammadan Islamic type of marriage. We thank you so much. Subscribe, share, like our videos. Thank you so much. Stay blessed. My name is Walter, and this was Voices of the Bar, where the legal world speaks. Thank you so much. See you. Cheers.